The text message glowed on Lena's phone at 11:47 p.m. I'm not your property. I'll be late. Don't call. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I stared at those words, sitting in my recliner in our darkened living room, her forgotten phone buzzing in my hands. My wife of 8 years had never spoken to me like that. Hell, she'd never had the guts to speak to me like that. But she wasn't texting me. I'm Eric Harper, 38 years old, construction project manager for Morrison & Associates. I build things, I fix things, and apparently I've been blind to things falling apart right under my nose. The phone buzzed again. Another message to the same number. Ethan's picking me up at the usual spot. Sophie's covering for me if you call. Ethan. My stomach dropped like a sledgehammer through drywall. Ethan Clark, Lena's colleague at Pinnacle Marketing, the guy she'd been talking about constantly for months, her work friend who helped her with challenging projects that required so many late nights. I scrolled up through their conversation history, my hands shaking slightly. The messages went back weeks, months actually. Can't wait to feel your hands on me again. Eric's working late tomorrow. Come over. You make me feel alive in ways my husband never could. Each message was a nail in the coffin of my marriage, but the worst part wasn't the betrayal itself. It was how stupid they thought I was. I heard Lena's key in the front door at 12:23 a.m. She tiptoed through the hallway, probably thinking I was asleep upstairs. Instead, I was sitting in the dark, her phone still in my hands, planning my next move. Eric? She whispered. Are you awake? I didn't answer. I watched her shadow move through the kitchen, heard her grab a glass of water, listened to her footsteps on the stairs. Our bedroom door closed with a soft click. I looked down at her phone and typed a response to Ethan. I'm not your husband anymore. Don't come back. Then I sent it. Within 10 minutes, Lena's phone exploded with missed calls and frantic texts from Ethan. I turned the phone to silent and went to my workshop in the basement. I had some planning to do. The next morning, Lena came downstairs wearing her favorite blue dress, the one she claimed was for important client meetings, but apparently doubled as her cheating outfit. She moved through her usual routine, coffee, toast, checking her phone. That's when she realized it was missing. Eric, have you seen my phone? She called out, her voice carrying that fake casual tone she used when she was nervous. I was sitting at the kitchen table, drinking coffee and reading the newspaper like it was any other Tuesday. Which phone? She froze. What do you mean, which phone? I reached into my pocket and placed her iPhone on the table between us. Her face went white. Sit down, Lena. Eric, I can explain. Sit down. She sat across from me, her hands trembling slightly. I'd never used that tone with her before. In 8 years of marriage, I'd been the accommodating husband, the guy who worked extra hours so she could pursue her career, the one who never questioned her increasingly frequent girls' nights and work events. I read your messages, I said simply. The color drained completely from her face. Eric, please, it's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. I opened her phone and began reading aloud. Yesterday, 3:47 p.m. Eric's so clueless. He actually believes I'm working late again. Yesterday, 8:22 p.m. Can't wait to have you inside me. This hotel room is perfect. Stop. Tears were forming in her eyes. Oh, we're just getting started. How about this one from last week? My husband is such a boring construction worker. You make me feel sophisticated. Eric, please. I stood up and walked to the kitchen counter, where I'd laid out printed screenshots of their conversations. Dozens of them. Ethan Clark, 33 years old. Also married, though apparently his wife left him 3 months ago. Probably figured out what kind of man she married before I did. Lena was crying now, but I felt nothing. No sympathy. No urge to comfort her. Just cold, calculating anger. How long? I asked. Eric? How long, Lena? 6 months, she whispered. Try again? 10 months. I nodded. That matched the timeline in their messages. In our house? She couldn't meet my eyes. Sometimes. In our bed? Eric, please don't do this. In our bed, Lena. Yes. I walked over to the kitchen drawer and pulled out a hammer. Lena's eyes widened in fear, but I simply walked past her to the front door. On the porch was a small velvet box I'd found hidden in her jewelry drawer. I placed the box on our concrete driveway and brought the hammer down hard. The engagement ring Ethan had apparently bought her shattered into glittering pieces. Tell your boyfriend his jewelry doesn't impress me, I said, walking back inside. Lena was sobbing now. Eric, I'm so sorry. I made a mistake. We can work through this. No, we can't. I'll end it with Ethan. I'll quit my job. We can go to counseling. Lena, look at me. She raised her tear-stained face. You texted him that you're not my property. You're right, you're not. And I'm not your husband, not anymore. I walked upstairs and came back down with 2 suitcases I'd packed while she was getting ready for work. Your clothes are in here. Everything else we'll figure out through lawyers. Eric, you can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. She stood up, her face shifting from remorse to anger. You can't just throw me out. This is my house, too. Actually, I can. The house is in my name. Wedding gift from my parents, remember? You never wanted to be on the mortgage because it would hurt your credit score for that BMW you had to have. The realization hit her like a physical blow. Eric, please, I love you. No, you don't. You love the security I provided while you played house with your boyfriend. But that's over now. I opened the front door and set her suitcases on the porch. You can stay with Sophie. I'm sure she'll understand, considering how much she helped you lie to me. Lena's tears had stopped. Now she was angry. You're going to regret this, Eric. I'm not some construction worker's wife you can just discard. I have a career. I have friends. I have options. I'm sure you do. Use them. She grabbed her suitcases and walked toward her BMW. At the car, she turned back. This isn't over. Yes, it is. I watched her drive away, then went inside and changed all the locks. That was just the beginning. My friend Paulie arrived an hour after Lena left. Paul Kowalski, 42, former bouncer turned electrician, had been my best friend since high school. He was the guy you called when you needed someone reliable, discreet, and capable of handling trouble. Heard you might need some backup, he said, settling his 6'4" frame into my kitchen chair. News travels fast. Sophie called my wife, crying about how you'd gone crazy and thrown poor Lena out for no reason. Paulie cracked open a beer. Want to tell me the real story? I handed him Lena's phone and the printed messages. He read through them silently, his expression growing darker with each page. Jesus, Eric, how long has this been going on? 10 months, maybe longer. And this Ethan guy, he knows you know? He knows someone knows. Lena probably told him by now that I found out. Paulie set down the papers. So what's the plan? I'm not sure yet, but I'm not going quietly. They made me look like a fool for almost a year. Time to return the favor. What do you need from me? Information. You still talk to Jimmy Reeves? Jimmy was a private investigator who'd helped some of our construction crews with background checks. He owed Paulie a few favors. Yeah, I can reach out. What are you looking for? Everything. Ethan's address, his schedule, his finances, his habits, where they've been meeting, how often, who else knows about it. Paulie nodded. Jimmy's good at that stuff. What about Lena? I know Lena. She's predictable. She'll go to Sophie's, spend a few days crying and playing the victim, then try to come back with some story about how this was all a misunderstanding. And when she does, she'll find out that some misunderstandings have permanent consequences. My phone rang. Lena's name appeared on the screen. I declined the call. It rang again immediately. I declined again. She's called 15 times since she left, I told Paulie. You going to talk to her? Eventually. But first, I want to know exactly what I'm dealing with. Paulie finished his beer and stood up. I'll call Jimmy tonight. Should have something for you by tomorrow. After he left, I sat in my empty house and thought about the last year. All the signs I'd missed or ignored. The new clothes Lena claimed were for work. The sudden interest in going to the gym. The way she'd started keeping her phone face down during dinner. The mysterious calls she'd take in the other room. I'd been so focused on providing for us, on building our future, that I'd missed her tearing it down behind my back. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Eric, this is Ethan. We need to talk. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, No, we don't. This is a misunderstanding. Lena and I are just friends. Friends don't buy each other engagement rings. There was a long pause before his next message. How much do you want? I had to read that twice. Excuse me? To keep this quiet. To not cause problems at work. Name your price. I laughed out loud in my empty kitchen. This guy actually thought he could buy his way out of this. He had no idea who he was dealing with. You can't afford what this is going to cost you, I typed back. Then I blocked his number. Jimmy Reeves came through faster than I expected. By Wednesday evening, I had a complete dossier on Ethan Clark, 33 years old, marketing director at Pinnacle, divorced 3 months ago when his wife Rebecca found out about his affair with a coworker. Lived in a luxury apartment complex downtown, drove a black BMW, worked out at an expensive gym, ate lunch at the same restaurant every Tuesday and Thursday. Most importantly, he was a creature of habit. Guy's got a routine tighter than a Swiss watch, Jimmy explained, sitting in my living room with Polly. Gym every morning at 6 a.m., same coffee shop at 7:15, office by 8, lunch at Meridian Grill on Tuesdays and Thursdays, happy hour at Blackstone Bar most Fridays. What about his apartment? Penthouse level, unit 2847. Building has security, but it's mostly for show. Parking garage is accessible if you know what you're doing. I studied the photos Jimmy had taken. Ethan looked exactly like what he was, a smooth, well-dressed corporate climber who thought his money and position made him untouchable. There's something else, Jimmy said. His ex-wife, Rebecca? She's pissed. Really pissed. Apparently he cleaned out their joint accounts before filing for divorce. Interesting. She might be willing to talk, especially if she knew he was still pulling the same crap with married women. I filed that information away. Rebecca Clark might be useful later. Thursday morning, I called in sick to work and drove to Ethan's gym. I sat in my truck across the street and watched him emerge at exactly 7:05 a.m., perfectly groomed and checking his phone. He drove his BMW to the coffee shop, ordered what looked like an expensive specialty drink, and headed to his office. Everything about him screamed entitlement. The way he parked across 2 spaces, the way he cut in front of an elderly man at the coffee shop, the way he talked on his phone while the barista was trying to take his order. This was the man my wife thought was better than me. That evening, I followed him to Blackstone Bar. It was the kind of place that charged $20 for a cocktail and played jazz music loud enough to drown out conversation. Ethan sat at the bar, ordered top-shelf whiskey, and spent most of the night texting. I ordered a beer and sat 3 stools away, watching him in the mirror behind the bar. Every few minutes, he'd smile at his phone and type something back. I had a pretty good idea who he was texting. Around 10 p.m., he paid his tab and headed for the parking garage. I followed at a distance, staying in the shadows. He was so focused on his phone that he never noticed me. His BMW was parked in a corner spot on the 2nd level. As he approached the car, I stepped out of the shadows. Ethan Clark? He spun around, startled. Who's asking? Eric Harper, Lena's husband. The color drained from his face. Eric, look, this is all a big misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. You've been sleeping with my wife for 10 months. He took a step back toward his car. I think you've got the wrong idea. I've got her phone. I've read every message. I know about the hotels, the gifts, the plans you two made. Ethan's expression shifted from fear to something like defiance. Look, Eric, I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but Lena and we have something special, something real. Something real. She's not happy with you. She hasn't been for a long time. I'm just giving her what she needs. I took a step closer. And what's that? Excitement. Sophistication. A future with someone who appreciates her intelligence instead of treating her like a housewife. Housewife? Lena hasn't cooked a meal or cleaned a bathroom in 3 years. I did that while working 50-hour weeks to pay for her BMW and her designer clothes and her girls' nights out. That's not... Look, this doesn't have to get ugly. Lena's going to leave you anyway. Why not make it easy on everyone? Easy on everyone? I can make it worth your while. I make good money. I could help with the divorce settlement, make sure you're taken care of. I stared at him for a long moment. You want to pay me to give up my wife? I want to handle this like civilized adults. Civilized adults don't sleep with other people's spouses. Ethan was getting nervous again. He fumbled with his car keys. Eric, I think we should both cool off and talk about this later. I reached out and plucked the keys from his hands. Actually, I think we should talk about it right now. Give me my keys. In a minute. First, I want you to understand something. You think you're better than me because you wear expensive suits and work in an office. You think Lena's some prize you won because you convinced her to betray her marriage vows. Eric, but here's what you don't understand. I built things for a living. I know how to take things apart too, and right now I'm looking at something that needs to be demolished. I tossed his keys into a storm drain 20 feet away. They landed with a satisfying splash. What the hell? Have a nice walk, Ethan, and stay away from my wife. I left him standing there in the parking garage, frantically looking into the storm drain. It felt like the first satisfying moment I'd had in months, but it was just the beginning. By Friday, Lena had called me 47 times. I counted. She'd also sent dozens of texts, ranging from apologetic to angry to desperate. I read them all, but didn't respond to any. Sophie had called too, leaving voicemails about how I was being unreasonable and cruel, and how Lena was devastated and learning from her mistakes. The only person I talked to was my lawyer, David Martinez, who confirmed what I already knew. Massachusetts was a no-fault divorce state, but adultery could still affect property division and alimony, especially when it was well documented. You've got enough evidence to make her divorce very expensive, David told me. The question is, how far do you want to take this? As far as it needs to go. Saturday morning, I drove to Ethan's apartment building. The parking garage was easy to access, just like Jimmy had said. I found Ethan's BMW on the 3rd level and spent a few minutes examining it. It was pristine, probably detailed every week. The kind of car someone bought to impress people. I didn't damage it. That would be criminal mischief. Instead, I did something much more creative. I had a friend in pest control who owed me a favor. He'd given me a small container of what he called eau de skunk, a concentrated scent used for training purposes. A few drops in the right places would make the car uninhabitable for weeks. I applied it to his air conditioning intake and under the door handles. Then I left a note under his windshield wiper. Smells like adultery in here. E.H. That afternoon, I got a furious call from Lena. I finally answered. Eric, what did you do to Ethan's car? Hello to you too, Lena. This is harassment. This is stalking. I'm calling the police. Go ahead. Tell them your husband found out about your affair and left a note on your boyfriend's car. I'm sure they'll be very sympathetic. Eric, please, we need to talk. I made a mistake, but we can fix this. We can't fix this, Lena. There is no we anymore. I love you. No, you don't. You love the idea of having a safety net while you play around with other men, but that safety net is gone now. Eric, I hung up. Sunday, I went to church for the first time in months. Not because I was feeling particularly spiritual, but because I knew it would get back to Lena through the gossip network. Mrs. Patterson, who lived 3 houses down, made sure to tell me how sorry she was to hear about my troubles. These things happen, she said, patting my arm, but you're handling it with such dignity. Just trying to do the right thing, Mrs. Patterson. That Lena never deserved you anyway. Always thought she was too good for the neighborhood. I didn't respond to that, but I filed it away. The court of public opinion was already turning against Lena. Monday morning, I went back to work. Word had gotten around the construction site about my situation, and the guys were supportive in their gruff way. My foreman, Mike Santos, pulled me aside. You need any time off to deal with lawyers and stuff, just let me know. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. For what it's worth, I never liked her. Always acted like she was slumming it when she came to company parties. That evening, I got a call from Jimmy Reeves. Rebecca Clark wants to meet with you, he said. Ethan's ex-wife? Yeah. Apparently word got back to her that her ex-husband is up to his old tricks. She's got some information she thinks you'd find interesting. What kind of information? The kind that could make both our lives easier. We arranged to meet Tuesday evening at a coffee shop in Newton. Rebecca Clark turned out to be an attractive woman in her early 30s, with short blonde hair and intelligent blue eyes. She looked tired but determined. Thank you for meeting with me, she said, settling into the booth across from me. Jimmy said you had information about Ethan. I do, but first I want you to know that I'm sorry about what you're going through. I know exactly how it feels. How long were you married? 4 years. I found out about his first affair 2 years ago. He convinced me it was a mistake, that he'd learned his lesson. I was stupid enough to believe him. First affair? There were 3 that I know of. Probably more. Ethan has a pattern. He targets married women, tells them their husbands don't appreciate them, makes them feel special and sophisticated. Sounds familiar. The thing about Ethan is that he's not just a cheater. He's a predator. He specifically goes after women who have something to lose. Stable marriages, financial security, social standing. He gets off on the power of destroying that. I leaned forward. What kind of information do you have? Rebecca reached into her purse and pulled out a thick folder. Financial records. Ethan's been using company credit cards to pay for hotels and gifts for his affairs. His boss doesn't know yet, but he will. You're going to report him? I already have. I sent everything to Pinnacle's HR department this morning. Ethan should be getting called into a meeting sometime this week. I stared at her. Why are you doing this? Because he destroyed my life, and now he's destroying yours. And because men like Ethan never stop unless someone stops them. She slid the folder across the table. There's something else in there. Evidence of the other affairs, names, dates, documentation. If your wife thinks she's special, she's about to find out she's just the latest in a long line. I opened the folder and scanned the contents. It was devastating. Ethan had been systematically cheating on his wife for years, using the same tactics, the same lies, even the same hotel rooms. Lena doesn't know about the others? I doubt it. Ethan's very good at making each woman think she's the only one. What do you want in return for this? Rebecca smiled grimly. I want to watch Ethan's world burn down the same way he burned down mine, and I want your wife to know exactly what kind of man she threw her marriage away for. As I drove home that night, I felt something I hadn't experienced since finding those text messages. Hope. Not hope for reconciliation, that ship had sailed, but hope for justice. Ethan Clark was about to learn that some construction workers knew how to demolish more than just buildings. Wednesday morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls from Lena. When I finally called her back, she was hysterical. Eric, something terrible has happened. What now? Ethan got fired. They called him into HR yesterday and terminated him immediately. They're saying he misused company funds and violated the harassment policy. That's terrible, I said, not bothering to hide my satisfaction. You did this. You got him fired. I didn't get him fired, Lena. His own actions got him fired. Apparently, sleeping with coworkers and stealing company money to pay for hotel rooms isn't good for business. He wasn't stealing. Company credit cards for personal expenses is embezzlement, but I'm sure you knew that. There was silence on the other end of the line. Eric, please. Ethan lost his job. He might lose his apartment. Can't you just let this go? Let it go? Lena, you destroyed our marriage for this guy. You lied to me for 10 months. You brought him into our house, into our bed. And now you want me to feel sorry for him because he's facing consequences? I know I hurt you, but you didn't hurt me, Lena. You betrayed me. There's a difference. What do you want from me? What will it take to make this stop? I want the truth. All of it. I told you the truth. No, you told me what you thought I wanted to hear. I want to know how many times you brought him to our house. I want to know how many of our friends knew about it. I want to know if you ever loved me at all, or if I was just a convenient ATM while you figured out your next move. Lena was crying now. Eric, please don't do this. Answer the question. I did love you. I do love you. But Ethan made me feel things I hadn't felt in years. He made me feel beautiful and desirable and important. And I didn't? You made me feel safe, secure. But that's not the same thing. No, it's not. Safe and secure are what you build a life on. Beautiful and desirable are what you throw a life away for. Eric, we're done, Lena. The divorce papers will be ready next week. I hung up before she could respond. That afternoon, I met with Rebecca Clark again. She had more news. Ethan's been evicted, she said. Apparently he was behind on rent and using his corporate credit card to make payments. When the company canceled the card, the checks bounced. Where's he staying now? Cheap motel on Route 9, the kind of place that rents by the week. And Lena? Still at her friend Sophie's, as far as I know. But Sophie's getting tired of the drama. Word is, she's asked Lena to find somewhere else to stay. I nodded. Everything was falling apart for them, exactly as it should. There's one more thing, Rebecca said. I've been in touch with the other women Ethan had affairs with. They're all willing to testify about his pattern of behavior if needed. For what? Civil court. Alienation of affection lawsuits are still legal in Massachusetts. You could sue both Ethan and Lena for damages. I considered that. How much are we talking about? Depends on what you can prove in terms of financial and emotional damages. But with the evidence we have, it could be substantial. Do it. Eric, are you sure? This will make everything public. It'll be in the newspapers. Good. Let everyone know what they did. Thursday evening, Ethan showed up at my house. I watched him through the window as he got out of a beat-up rental car and walked to my front door. He looked like hell. Unshaven, wearing wrinkled clothes, dark circles under his eyes. I let him ring the doorbell 3 times before I answered. What do you want, Ethan? I want to talk. We have nothing to talk about. Please, just 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. You've got 5 minutes. I know you're angry. I'm not angry, Ethan. Angry is what you feel when someone cuts you off in traffic. What I feel towards you is something much colder. I never meant for any of this to happen. You never meant to get caught. That's not... Look, I know I made mistakes, but I love Lena. I really love her. You love the idea of taking something that belonged to someone else. That's not the same thing. I want to marry her. I laughed. With what? You're unemployed, homeless, and about to be sued for everything you don't have. I'll find another job. I'll rebuild. No, you won't. Rebecca made sure of that. Every marketing firm in Boston knows what you did. You're blacklisted. Ethan's face went white. Rebecca? What does she have to do with this? Everything. She's been very helpful in documenting your pattern of destroying marriages. That vindictive bitch? That vindictive bitch was your wife, the woman you promised to love and honor before you decided to sleep your way through half of Boston. Ethan was shaking now, whether from anger or fear, I couldn't tell. What do you want from me? I want you to disappear, leave Boston, leave Massachusetts, leave Lena alone, and never contact her again. I can't do that. Then you'll face the consequences. What consequences? Civil court, criminal charges for embezzlement, public humiliation, your choice. Ethan stared at me for a long moment. You're destroying people's lives. No, Ethan, I'm just making sure everyone knows what you and Lena destroyed. There's a difference. He turned and walked back to his rental car without another word. I watched him drive away, knowing I'd never see him again. Friday morning, Lena showed up at my office. She'd somehow gotten past security and was waiting in the parking lot when I arrived for work. Eric, we need to talk. No, we don't. Ethan's gone. He left Boston. Are you happy now? I'm satisfied. I lost everything because of you. My job, my friends, my marriage. You lost everything because of your choices, Lena, not mine. I made one mistake. You made hundreds of mistakes over 10 months. Every lie, every hotel room, every time you brought that man into our house was a separate choice. What am I supposed to do now? I don't know, and I don't care. That's not my problem anymore. Eric, I'm begging you, please. I'll do anything to make this right. I looked at my wife, my soon-to-be ex-wife, standing in the parking lot of my construction site, crying and desperate and finally understanding the consequences of her actions. There's nothing to make right, Lena. It's over. It's been over since the moment you decided another man was more important than our marriage. I never said he was more important. You didn't have to say it. You proved it with your actions. I walked toward the office building, leaving her standing there. She called after me, but I didn't turn around. That afternoon, David Martinez called with news. The alienation of affection lawsuit is moving forward. We're seeking damages of $200,000 from Ethan and $50,000 from Lena. Will we get it? From Ethan? Probably not. He's broke, but it'll follow him for years. From Lena, she still has some assets we can go after. Good. Eric, are you sure you want to take it this far? Lena's already lost everything. She made her choice. Now she gets to live with it. The divorce was finalized on a cold Tuesday morning in February. Lena didn't contest anything. She couldn't afford to. I kept the house, the savings account, and my pension. Lena got her BMW and whatever personal belongings she could fit in it. No alimony, no settlement, no second chances. She moved back to Ohio to live with her parents. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she was working as a receptionist at a dental office, a far cry from her marketing executive days. Ethan disappeared completely. Rebecca heard he'd moved to Florida and was selling insurance under a different name. The embezzlement charges were dropped in exchange for full restitution, but his career in marketing was over forever. Sophie, Lena's loyal friend and accomplice, found herself ostracized by their social circle once word got out about her role in covering up the affair. She moved to California 6 months later. I kept working, kept building things, kept living my life. The house felt different without Lena, but not worse. Just quieter, more honest. A year later, I ran into Rebecca Clark at a coffee shop. She looked good, relaxed, happy, like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. "How are you doing?" she asked. "Good. Better than good, actually. You?" "Same. I'm seeing someone new. A good man this time. Someone who understands the value of honesty." "I'm glad." "Any regrets about how things went down?" I thought about that for a moment. No, they made their choices. I just made sure they faced the consequences. Some people would say you went too far. Some people have never had their marriage destroyed by someone they trusted. Rebecca nodded. For what it's worth, I think you did exactly what needed to be done. We talked for a few more minutes, then went our separate ways. I never saw her again, but I was grateful for her help in bringing justice to a situation that could have ended with me being the only one who suffered. 6 months ago, I got a letter from Lena. She'd found my new address somehow and wanted to reconnect and apologize properly. She said she'd learned from her mistakes and hoped we could be friends. I threw the letter away without finishing it. Some bridges, once burned, should stay that way. Last week, I started dating a woman named Sarah who works as a nurse at the local hospital. She's kind, honest, and has no interest in playing games or keeping secrets. We take things slow, build trust carefully, and appreciate what we have instead of looking for something better. She knows my story. She knows what Lena and Ethan did and how I responded. She says she respects a man who stands up for himself and doesn't let people walk all over him. "You didn't get revenge," she told me recently. You got justice. There's a difference. She's right. Revenge would have been about hurting them. Justice was about making sure their actions had consequences. Today marks 2 years since I found those text messages on Lena's phone. 2 years since my marriage ended and my real life began. I'm not the same man I was then. I'm stronger, smarter, and much less trusting. But I'm also happier. I know who I am and what I'm worth, and I'll never again let someone convince me otherwise. Lena texted me that I wasn't her property, and she was right. But she also wasn't my wife anymore, and that turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me. Sometimes the worst betrayals lead to the best outcomes. Sometimes losing everything helps you realize what's actually worth keeping, and sometimes the people who think they're too good for you do you a favor by proving it.